Good afternoon. We thank you for joining us for this third of 4 unit record report trainings. My name is Ann Boyles. I'm a program associate for the Student Financial Aid Division here. Joining me today are Carla Idle-Corwin, who is our Senior Associate Director, and Becky Phillips from the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. Before we get started, I'd like to just cover some brief housekeeping. We will have everyone on mute for most of the training, with the exception of Becky, so that she can provide, some discussion on her slides. We may periodically unmute to take questions, but for the most part, we will ask that you provide questions to us and mark to everyone in the chat box on your pop-up. There should be a little area there where you can type in your questions and send them to us. If you'll mark those to everyone, then everyone can see that question, and we will attempt to answer those as they come in. With that, let me turn this over to Carla.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Can somebody give me an indication that the audio is okay? We're in a different room today than we've been in. Thank you, Lisa. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. This is my, about my 27th year of unit record, but 26 seasons were spent on the campus side of this experience, and now I'm on the agency side. This is the 48th year of the unit record, which is the same age as the Washington State Need Grant Program. And the purpose is to provide us with institutional comparisons across the state. It measures the needs of our students, and Becky and Rochelle, especially, our Director of Student Financial Assistance and Deputy Director, both use this data when they're advocating on behalf of students before the legislature. Another tool that this device provides to us is that it measures the need of students and looks at unmet needs. So those are two different pieces of the same equation. It also gives us information so that we can shape potential changes to the state aid programs through modeling that we do here and in consultation with the legislative staff. It also gives us a centralized data repository so that when we get asked questions, we can easily respond. The unit record manual is electronically available online on our website. The web address is provided there for you. The unit record tool has been open since August 14th. I don't know if any of you have ventured into that yet, but please do give it a shot. And the finalized reports are due October 20th, which is 1 week after WAFA. WASAC will then spend October and November doing data analysis and developing reports based on the information that you provide. And then we will make available to all of you your institutional profiles in January. So please, if you can, start early. Early is better. And you have access to a variety of tools where you can compare your unit record information with schools within your sector, and also look at historical data for your institution. The manual itself is quite user-friendly, and many of you are very familiar with it. We start out with kind of the overview, purpose, changes, which is an important section to pay attention to, and the timelines for when everything is due. We provide you with general instructions, data definitions, the application user's guide, and appendices. The appendices are where I know I used to spend a lot of my time as an aid administrator, figuring out which codes go where, and I know Becky's group provides a great resource for helping schools sort that out. So making sure that you know what's in each of those appendices is very important. As you know, you'll be doing the portal CSV file submission. You're going to report students who have received financial aid based on either the 16-17 FAFSA or the WASFA. You're going to want to make sure that you take a look at your records, and I know the State Board provides a lot of this for you so that you know that your file layout is correct and will prevent you from having some of the issues that some of our other partners might have having to do with header rows. Becky?
Hi, everybody. This is Becky from State Board IT, current system. And as Carla had mentioned, yes, we do provide a tool for the CTCs to use to create their record, including the CSV file. That's a batch job, SM9738J. And it will include students who received financial aid during the 2016-17 year. Okay, and it will ensure that the file contains the header row. And as part of my job is to, and I'm doing this currently, is to test the yearly update to SM9738J. And I will be uploading the CSV file to the training site just to make sure it does pass, is the correct format and passes the portal file edits. So when you guys get it, when you can start making your running the job and making your file, you won't have to worry about that part. Carla?
Okay. In terms of the reporting requirements, it's about getting all the right students into the unit record report. And by right students, we mean students who receive need-based aid. Those are required to be reported. Students who are need-based aid recipients where they may have not been required to file a FAFSA or a WASFA, but they receive some form of need-based aid, and I'll cover those. That includes the Opportunity Scholarship, Get Ready for Math and Science, the State Board for Community and Technical College Opportunity Grant, for example, and then also non-need-based federal loan recipients. You can refer to Appendix A in the manual to actually look at the details of each of these programs. Becky?
Thank you, Carla. I just wanted to let everyone know that the SM9738 job will select the 2016-17 need-based recipients, and then also your non-need-based federal loan recipients. So we make sure that everyone that needs to be there will be there. Carla?
In terms of what you're reporting, we're really about trying to capture who received what assistance term by term. So that's really the intent, is to look at the students receiving need-based aid in addition to student loans. The programs that we're capturing are listed on the slide before you. I'm not going to read that to you. I do just want to point out that the Student Teaching Grant is also known as the Student Teacher Residency Grant and will be reported under other student-funded or other state-funded gift assistance. Unlike other programs in this category, this is a need-based program and the FAFSA is required. Next year, so not to confuse you, there will be another program called the Teacher Shortage Conditional Grant. That will be reported under conditional loans, but not till next year's unit record. So there's two programs, similar names, different basis for awarding. Additional programs to report. We're trying to have a complete picture of all of the assistance that our students receive, as well as capture their unmet need. And so we're asking for you to report everything that's listed on the screen before you. Turn it over to Becky.
Thanks. As many of you who have done this in the current system know that, or might remember that there are processing table entries for every category. So there's a bucket for everything. So both need-based awards and non-need-based federal loans have separate processing table entries, and they are all on the CIS/WAT processing table. And all of this will be spelled out and detailed in the unit record report documentation when it will be available. That should be within the next, probably sometime late next week. Carla?
Okay. And there was a question that Isabel had just posed, and I think you just answered it, Becky, that the unit record manual for State Board should be available late next week.
Probably late next week, along with the job. I'm currently testing it. Just, need to make sure everything's hunky-dory with it before we get this out to you, and including the documentation.
Okay, thank you. The Basic Food Employment and Training funds, we are asking that you report those. They are considered a subset of worker retraining funds and should be reported under the workforce training funds. If you can, please capture and report it. I know some of you track that data differently, but we are asking for it whenever possible.
So for on the legacy system side, you would enter your BFET award codes in the workforce T entry on the processing table in FAM. So there's a spot for that. Carla?
For the federal non-need-based loan recipients, we're asking you to report the 3 types of loans listed here. Most of you, I'm guessing that will probably just apply to the direct unsub, but we are trying to capture all loan assistance received. And when you're looking at your reports and cleaning up your data, we've provided some information here with what we'll be looking at. We're comparing the final reports that you submit against the interim reports that were submitted. So we're looking for consistency. One of the big changes has to do with reporting of tuition waivers. For the 2016-17 unit record, we are requesting that you provide the information related to the full cost of attendance and the tuition waiver amounts. It is required for 17-18, requested for 16-17, and that's so that we can accurately report the full cost of attendance and tuition assistance. We will be editing, like I said, all of those against the other reports that you do throughout the year, and Anne will follow up a little bit later on what happens if they don't match. Possible issues happen to be related to family size, number in college, family income, and when you're doing your expected family contribution, we're asking that you use federal methodology and report the federal methodology figure, please, not institutional methodology. A couple more changes for the unit record report relate to making sure that you add the student teaching grant that is new for 16-17, and that you recall that I mentioned earlier, the 17-18, there will be yet another teacher-related grant that gets reported in a different section and parameter. We've provided a sample of the valid input ranges. If any of you run into issues where these do not accommodate values that you encounter, please contact us so that we can assist on our end. We're asking that you report the following information that's listed on the slide before you. Again, I'm not one to read everything to you, just wanting to highlight that we're trying to capture the entire resource package, and so that's why we're asking for all 5 terms, and we're looking at enrollment status, and then we're also looking for non-need-based aid received by need-based recipients. In terms of your reporting requirements, we do also ask that when you're reporting for all 5 terms, that we recognize there are some instances where a school could have data in both Summer 1 and Summer 2, typically tied to workforce training funds. If you have many terms that you pair together, you're going to want to put those all in one session. So for example, if you have 2 mini summer sessions, you would have to figure out the enrollment level and report it for that combined session. Becky?
Okay. As we prepare our batch job, we do make sure everything gets into the correct location in the CSV file. And so included awards in B671, which is Summer 1, will be placed in the Summer 1 location in the file. And then included awards in the 5th quarter, the Summer 2, B675, will be placed in the Summer 2 location in the CSV file. So just wanted to let you know that we make sure they go in the right spots for you. Carla?
Some additional related fields that we're asking for you to report on the unit record are listed on the screen before you. So it's kind of the non-aid data elements and is really getting at the family situation and a true picture of the student situation. Those are all critical fields for when it comes time for us to assess data for making appeals to the legislature for additional money often. Some special notes about selected fields relates to Social Security numbers. This can hang people up when they're trying to submit. You cannot have duplicate Social Security numbers, and so your files won't upload if that's the case. The other thing is the Social Security numbers have to match between the unit record and the interim and final report. So if you have any discrepancies, you'll need to make sure you contact us between those two reports because we'll have to make the corrections on our side. And Anne is your go-to person for assistance in getting those resolved. Additionally, Social Security numbers of the Passport to College recipients will also be compared to our portal records. Basic information on year in school. Many of you know these values quite well. The key is making sure that you report the status that the student was at the beginning of the last term that they received money. We recognize that students can progress between grade levels within an academic year. We're asking that you not use what is reported on the FAFSA or the WASFA for the reason that we just indicated, that we recognize students change grade levels, and that you link it to their last term that they received money. Code 8 is what you will use for Running Start and non-high school grads. It's not used that often, but you may see more of these than other sectors. Becky?
We do have a batch job, SM 9146J, that will look at the student's record and post the grade level to the financial aid tab in FAM. Our fine friend Steve, who was Carla before she was, she's now that position. He and I worked together quite a few years ago on making sure that this gets the correct information for the grade level into FAM. So you can be confident that this will make the correct, tally up the students' transferred in credits, credits earned, and so on to report the correct year in school. And as I mentioned, it will post to the financial aid tab in FAM, and that's where the unit record report job will grab that value for the file. Carla?
On to talking about family information. It's important that you report what is on the student's FAFSA or WASFA, should match that data. Kind of base guidelines are, if you have an independent student, they're going to have a family size of at least 1 or higher, and number in college, 1 or higher. Again, for dependent student, there's automatic edits to look for at least 2 in household and at least 1 in college. So the number in college cannot exceed the family size, and there are edits built in for that. In terms of family income, we're asking that you not report $ signs or cents, and this is the only location on in your data that can include a negative number. Becky?
Okay, in our process unit record report job, if the student is dependent, the parent's AGI and untaxed income is reported. If the student is independent, the student's AGI and untaxed income is reported. And also, if there are negative incomes, those will be reported in the file. And there are some occasionally. Back to you, Carla.
Okay. In terms of looking at the expected family contribution, that should match your federal methodology calculation or WASFA calculation, with the exception of adjustments to the duration. If the student's budget has been adjusted to less than the 9-month standard cost of attendance, then your EFC would be equally adjusted. Or if you've made professional judgment decisions, again, those would have to, you'd want to make sure you document those. Your cost of attendance typically is going to be the standard cost of attendance that you assign on your campus to reflect students' individual living situations. We're asking that you make sure that the student budget is related to the need amount, and that the number of months for the cost of attendance, need duration, and EFC are all equal. Many of you know this slide probably all too well, how need is actually calculated. In this instance, we're asking that you do not report negative values, that you make sure again that the number of months is consistent for all 3 values. Becky?
The HP batch job SM9738J will generate an error message of need amount invalid if the need amount is not the formula that was on the previous slide, where if it's not the cost of attendance minus the combined student and parent contribution. So when you run this to prepare, you may see this this edit on your reports from this job, and then you need, even before you get the file to WASAC, so you can make your corrections if need be prior to uploading the file. Carla?
Most instances, your need duration is going to show up as 9 months, but if you adjust the either any of the elements, you have to adjust all 3 the same. So ESC, COA, and need all have to show the same duration, and you're not required to go back and recalculate. For example, if you had a student that you had set up for a standard academic year and then they left after 3 months, you are not required to recalculate, but you can. Just make sure you do all 3 data elements. I bet most of you know these numbers in your sleep. And just to highlight here, I don't know if we have anybody on the line that still has some clock hours, but essentially every 300 hours of attendance is equal to full time. And so we've provided a chart. And then the approximate date ranges for clock hour institutions when reporting which time period they attribute to each specific term. The state need grant, college-bound scholarship, and passport to college will be doing checks against the final interim report compared to the unit record. And so make sure that you report the final awards that students received. You're going to want to look at your differences report. And a little bit later in the presentation, Anne is going to show you how to respond to various edits that you may receive. One more time, touching on the whole tuition waiver piece, we are asking that you report the full cost of attendance and the tuition waiver assistance received by any of your students receiving need-based aid. It's requested for 16-17, required for 17-18. And again, this is to capture the full scope of assistance that our students are receiving. And there are 2 different fields for you to report waivers in. There is a need-based waiver category and a non-need-based waiver category. For state work study, if any of you happen to do the averaging method, you're going to want to make sure that if you average, you are really, really close to what you reported to state work study program staff, because that is actually cross-checked by our state work study staff. When you're reporting your institutional aid, it should end up in one of 2 buckets, I think is what Becky referred to them as, and that's a perfect description, need-based or non-need-based. So that's pretty self-explanatory. There are some examples of other state aid not reported elsewhere. That includes our American Indian Endowed Scholarship, any remaining Washington Scholars, and then the most recent student teaching residency grant. Becky?
We will, in the documentation, when it's available for unit record, there will be a complete list of the aid categories and the corresponding processing table entry. So well, I think we have it there 2 different ways, so kind of an easy way to find it, a quick way to find it, and then one that gives more detail. And as mentioned, I hope to have this out late next week, and I will definitely send something out to DERF and AID when it's available and when the updated SM9738J is available. If you run it now, it's going to be it's still looking at 15-16 year. So wait till you hear from me before you start running SM9738J for 16-17. You'll get some funky stuff if you run it now. Carla?
We do run a series of edits, as you know, in the unit record process as you're working on your files. And so there are some edits that are soft and some that are hard. And so for students that are receiving not reporting, some of you are not reporting need or cost of attendance if there is no FAFSA or WASFA. That's one of the soft edits. And so for students receiving non-need-based federal loans, the edits are softer. You just may need to put in an explanation before you do an override and proceed. The edits that are the hard ones that prevent you from proceeding are listed in Appendix C, and probably the biggest one would have to do with duplicate Social Security numbers or blanks in required fields. Some more examples of you go through and you do your file upload and you get past that first phase, but then you start running your edits. Some of the non-overridable edit examples is total aid reported is 0. If they didn't receive any aid, they shouldn't be included in the file. If they're a non-resident with any type of state aid, it could require that you need to do some corrections on your end and either A, correct their residency on your end, or B, return the funds and correct your upload file. Some examples of overridable edits, again listed in Appendix C, have to do with if their budget changed when they dropped credits, that can happen. If they have a date of birth outside of the normal range, for example, I think it's younger than 15 and older than 75, I think is the edit window. And so if you have somebody truly in that situation, you can override it and just explain that, yes, you have verified that person's date of birth. Becky?
Thank you, Carla. The edits in the batch job SM9738J mimic the WASAC edits, so you should be aware of them before you even upload the file. Students with errors on the reports that come out of SM9738 are included in the CSV file with a couple of exceptions. If the student's award amount is 0, they won't be included, and WASAC doesn't want them. And the student has awards that aren't entered on one of the processing table entries. So somehow it got missed and show up with this award that it doesn't know what bucket to put it in. There's actually 3 reports produced by SM9738J. The C report, the third one, is the error report, and it can list students by error or error messages by students. Or you can also, I think, still run it where it just lists the students with errors, but you have some choices on that, and that'll be explained in the documentation when it's available. Carla?
So some final tips and best practices before we move into the actual system instructions. Again, encouraging you to start as early as you can. I recognize that hopefully by next week you may be in a position to be doing this. We do encourage you to use our training portal. so that you can test drive your files after you've gone through all the state board edits. You can certainly test drive it in ours before you go live. And that we will be sending out a notice when this session has been posted. So both the slide deck as well as the audio will be available for anyone that wants to share it with other staff. And are there any final questions for this section?
While waiting to see if there are any questions, I thought I'd just go over the basic steps that we recommend for the CTCs on the current system. As with many processes, start with reconciling your awards to expenditure data, run the job to post the SMS year in school to the financial aid tab, run the job to update academic hours on the academic tab, run a job to update the residency status from SMS. There's a data express procedure, ad hoc procedure to determine if award code was used during the 16-17 year. Then update your processing table entries for unit record. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. Then run a schedule SM9738J, review the reports and correct the errors, run it again in final, or you can run it as many times as you want, but eventually you'll probably want to run it in final mode to generate the final reports and create the CSV file. There is a screen, HBUX screen to download that file, and you download it to a PC or network drive, and then you upload the file to the WASAC portal. So, and all this will be in detail in the documentation when it's available. Carla?
And actually, now it's Anne's turn.
Well, thank you. We'll move then into the actual portal web application. Most of you are familiar with this landing page. There are a couple of ways to get to it. The direct address can be typed into the address bar at the top, and that is shown, that fortress.wa.gov address. Once you're here, you can log into the general portal, which is up in this corner, and you can work in other applications before you start working in unit record. Otherwise, if you want to go directly into the unit record report, you can click this button under the Financial Aid Administrators menu, and that will take you directly to the unit record application itself. Once you're there, you would click on Programs and click on Unit Record. The landing page for Unit Record will show you this message the first time you go into Unit Record for the year. If you've already been in and started working on a report and you are returning, you will see other statuses rather than this welcome sign. You'll see either ready to begin, in progress, or if you've already submitted, it will show you you're submitted with the opportunity to download some reports. When you're ready to start uploading, just click the upload button right here. This will take you to a browse menu. Click on the browse button, find your CSV file. We do have a copy of an example on our unit record webpage, and just use that. Make sure you strip out all of the instructional materials that are part of that file, and you can use that to bring in all of your information. Once you're ready, you just click your upload button here, which is shown as number 2, and then you will see a processing button. If you have a large file, it will show you the progression through the number of records that you have right here. If you have a major issue with the upload, it will stop the upload from occurring, and it will provide for you a list of the errors. And it's pretty specific. It tells you what row you can find that error in, what the error is, And in this situation, you do need to discard the file, correct it, and then attempt a resubmit. Once you've begun an upload, for the first time this year, we do have an early discard upload button. This is helpful in the event of a school that has a very large file, rather than waiting through the upload of a document that you know is ultimately going to be a problem. You can click this discard upload button and it will short circuit that upload and delete the file so that you can submit another one. Once that file upload is complete, you'll see a summary of your population. Just take a quick look at that and see whether that looks like it's you know, got a basis in reality, and then click Proceed to Edits. If you see that there appear to be some major dissonance between the information you see and what you think you uploaded, there is a discard upload button here as well. Once you've sent your file on to be processed for edits, it may take a little bit of time. There will be another processing bar up here in the corner. Once again, if you have a large file, it will show you the progression as it's moving through. You can begin to work on these edits as they show up. We do recommend that you press this refresh key periodically, particularly at the end, because sometimes it may appear to be finished, but if that refresh key is still there, that's your indicator that it is still working its way through those edits. Once your full edit list is present, you can choose how you want to look at or begin processing those edits. There is an option here with a drop-down, and these are the categories by which you can sort your edits and begin to address them. Before I move on, I want to mention that any edit that has this red stoplight or stop sign is what I'd call a non-overridable edit. Those absolutely have to be addressed before you can move forward with processing your file. But anything that is an overridable edit will also indicate that here in this column. As I mentioned, the file can't be submitted until all the non-overridable edits are corrected. Whether it's overridable or non-overridable, in order to enter that student record, go ahead and click on the Social Security number and it will open that record. All of your edit errors will show here at the top. It will indicate whether they are overridable or whether they're not overridable. If they are edits that you can correct, that you agree that perhaps there is an issue with that, you can go directly into the record, go into the field that needs to be corrected, whether it's in the Student Aid tab or in the Student Demographics tab, and make those corrections directly and click Save down here, and then either return to the edit list or click Next here to go to the next edit. Now, if you are going to click the Override button, it will bring up a pop-up box where you can indicate your reason why you believe that information is valid and correct. Make sure that you click the Save button here before you move on. If you want to double check to make sure that that took correctly, you can hover your cursor over this little blue and white icon. It will pop up in a little yellow box the reason that you entered into that override. You can check for missing data in previously reported WASAC records by clicking this State Need Grant CBS Passport to College Differences report. Once you have completed all the edits on the initial face page, and that will bring up this document, it will have 4 tabs. The first 3 have to do with the major programs. If you have already addressed that issue through that initial edit page, you will see in the override requested column a Y. If that's blank, that's your indicator that that issue still needs to be addressed. If you need to take a look at where the issues are, they're noted here in the columns. In this particular instance, Seesaw and the portal show that there were no passport payments. You've reported something in unit record. That means you need to go back into that individual file and make a correction or send some kind of an override edit on that student record. If you have a large number of edits to go through, you can go ahead and download to a CSV file. That way you can review all of them at once, identify whatever missing records there might be that need to be added or corrected, or make notes about whatever overrides you need to make or corrections. If you discover that you have to add missing data, if in those discrepancy reports you notice that the Social Security number was not highlighted, the way to make changes in that instance is to go up to the menu bar, click on the search button, and that will help you to bring up that student record for edit. Now, if you have a record that is not in the unit record and you realize that that is a student who has received some type of need-based aid or federal loans, the way you add that particular record is to click on this button from that initial edit page. That will bring up a blank student record. As you see, it has the same 2 tabs, the student demographics and need and the student aid tab. Make sure that you thoroughly complete both tabs before you click the save button. And on that student aid screen, you will see that the columns will be broken out by each of the 5 different term possibilities. And generally speaking, on that tab, each of these will be in a running vertical order. I have them broken out here for ease of viewing. The 4th tab has to do with what we call missing state need grant unserved students. These are students for whom the Seesaw record shows you have reported unserved students. However, we are not able to find a direct match or a record in the unit record for these students. The first thing we would ask you to do is take a look at the list. If you identify students that have received some type of aid, we ask at that point you go into that add a missing student record on the initial edits page, and you can go back to that edit list by clicking this button here at the top. And that will remove those students from this list. So when you come back to this tab, it will have eliminated those students. The next step we would ask that you do is download the CSV folder that will bring up a report that you will save to your PC and complete, and then return to us as a portal secure email. And what I have here is, you see here are all of the initial pieces of information that you've reported through Seesaw, and these blank columns boxed in red are the columns that you would place any information. Initially, if you see that a student has all information correct, What that means is that the student has been enrolled exactly as you show in Seesaw, and that they did not receive any need-based aid or federal loans. If that's the case, all you need to do is place a yes in this indicate yes column. You don't need to make any other changes. Anyone who has not enrolled in any of the terms, you don't need to address the not enrolled status. You can leave those blank. What you do need to fill out is whenever you see a change in status. Say for this one, full-time, less than full-time, half-time, full-time, half-time, full-time, not enrolled. In this particular case, you don't really need to change that because it's just confirming that there is no change to that particular enrollment status. Once you have completed that report, save it to your PC, and then go back to this discrepancies report page, click on send an email, and that will generate a secure email through the portal, and you can append that report to that email and send it to us securely. We will then take a look at that, and if we have any questions, then we may be back in touch with you. But at this point, as long as you have addressed all of these other discrepancies and returned this missing unserved report to us, the next step is to click to continue. Or if you find that you have other issues that you need to address, you can return to that edit page again. One issue that if you notice a discrepancy that is related to a mismatch in Social Security number, you cannot make corrections to Social Security number from your end. That will require sending us an email and letting us know the student's name and both Social Security numbers. Let us know which one is the correct Social Security number, and we will work with our IT department to have that corrected in the portal. At this point, you can click to continue or return to the edit list. Here we're coming down to the home stretch. This is our preliminary institutional totals report. There is a comparison for the last 4 years, and it will list all of the different program types that you have reported. We ask that you take a look at this to make sure that everything appears correct, that there aren't any numbers that really appear out of line. One caveat I want to mention is that you may find that the current year will show a little high in the numbers as compared to the previous year. And the reason for that is if you have reported non-need-based aid, those figures are included in these totals. And at this point, we would suggest that you download and keep a PDF for your records just for comparison when the reports come out in January, so that you have a sense of how many of those actually were, non-need-based students, and you'll have a sense of what to expect for the following year. But if everything looks correct, the next step is click to continue, and that will take you to the point where you can actually submit this report. Once you have clicked this Submit Your Unit Record report, you will receive a pop-up that tells you you will no longer be able to make any edits to the report. Do you wish to continue? If you click OK, that will then lock the unit record, and you'll no longer be able to make any changes without contacting WASAC staff. If you find that there is a major concern or something you do need to correct, you can contact us. We can revert your file. You can make those corrections. So it's not set in stone, but definitely it's not something you can reopen from your end. You will receive confirmation that it's been submitted, both here in the corner and in the left-hand side. It will indicate who actually made the submission and what date. At this point, you can log out, and that will be it. Carla?
And so, as you can see on the screen, there are several summary reports available to you upon submission. So the top 3 in blue will be available immediately. And then just wanted to point out that the 4 listed on the bottom section, the profile reports, will be made available in January. Both sets of reports provide historical documentation and data for you to kind of take a look at who's been in your aid portfolio and doing some comparisons in terms of students and dollars received. Becky?
Thank you, Carla. Just wanted to pass on that when you guys start running SM 9738J, or you start looking at the documentation and you go, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I put? What does this award go into? What category? What bucket on the processing table? Our team is there for you. Please contact our customer support at support@sbctc.edu, and we will be glad to help you with this. Carla?
And from the Student Achievement Council side, Ann and I are here to assist as well with the technical difficulties that you may encounter. It's going to be smooth sailing though, I'm confident. And we have, great resources between the state board documentation and the Student Achievement Council manuals. And additionally, we will also make this recording available probably within a week's time. And you can email us at unitrecord@wasac.wa.gov, as well as our personal emails and phone numbers are also listed there. And that concludes our session. If there are any questions, we'll hang out for a couple minutes and watch the chat box. Hearing none and hearing crickets, we'll go ahead and sign off. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance today.
Thank you.